Pat Mayo Hour.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Hour UFC OKC, that is Oklahoma City, DraftKings picks. Preview in studio with me to break it all down, Cody Saftic.
Ooh, happy to be here, Pat.
Yeah, you know what wasn't happy? Your lineups last week.
Yeah, well, the risks that we took. You know what? There were so many big favorites. You had to take a couple plays in some of these dogs, and most of the dogs got smoked, except for Sasaki. Came through on Justin Scoggins.
Who we didn't have.
We had him on the bonus lineup, but I had explained the reason why we didn't play him in the primary
not
lineups.
We didn't have Sasaki
Oh,
anywhere.
no. You know what? I guess in hindsight, everybody should have saw that he had a chance. But stylistically speaking, he had like a 1% chance to somehow take the back and somehow get a choke in. And, well, the 1% end up to land.
Is this a good card this week? Because I don't know the people in the main event.
Well, the thing is, it's another free card. It's another one of these cards that has a lot of crossroad bouts on it. Guys that are on 3-fight losing streaks, guys that are on 4-fight losing streaks. But, you know, intriguing matchups nonetheless, exciting fights, and some good value in certain spots for sure. But, yeah, I mean, this is just like a run-of-the-mill free event from the UFC, getting through these summer dog days, building up to their big pay-per-views. But nonetheless, I am intrigued by this one, and at least with last week. So, actually, this is either cursed lifted or I'm bound to shit in the bed right here. But 4 straight main events now, I think. We've Gustafsson, Holm, Holloway, Hunt, trying to make it the big 5 in a row here. That being said, this is not like Kohei versus Holm, where it's like a blind man can see that coming. This is not like the Gustafsson Teixeira fight, where it's like, okay, we obviously know one. This is another one like Holloway Hunt, where it's like it could go either way. It really could. Chiesa versus Lee, it's a close fight. Both guys got merit, but we're gonna have to side with Chiesa to try to make it the 5 straight for us.
All right, so he appears on your cash game team at $8,000. Why?
Yeah, he appears on actually both teams. If we're looking at him strictly in a cash game purpose, he's got 5 rounds to deal with. The guy's just known for his durability. He's ultra durable. Now, I think at a quick glance, people will look at the fact that he's got 2 pro losses, 14-2 record, and both of his pro losses have actually come by way of stoppage. But the first time, he had a cut stoppage against Joe Lozon. He loses the first round. He's coming on strong in the second. I think he's going to win the second round. He's a slow starter. I'm confident he'll win the third round, but the ref decides to stop it based on a cut. Let's take that one away from him. Prior to that, his first loss was George Masvidal. He starts out well, ends up getting caught in a submission. Outside of that, the guy is known for his durability, his ruggedness. He is a slow starter, but the later the fight goes, he really starts to come into his own. His last 2 fights, Jim Miller and Beneil Dariush, both guys arguably beat him in the first round. But that ruggedness and that durability he comes through in the second round, he gets them to the ground and he submits them. So when we're looking at this fight with Kevin Lee, he's got 5 rounds to deal with. So on a cash game purpose, even if he's going to lose this headlining affair, he should be able to rack up more than enough points just going the distance with a guy like Kevin Lee. He's got a decent takedown game. Now people will tell you, well, he's not going to be able to take down Kevin Lee, who's probably the superior wrestler on paper. He's had 9 UFC fights. He's completed at least 1 takedown in all 9 UFC fights. He gets guys down. He got George Masvidal down twice. He got Ally Quinta down. He got Francisco Trinaldo down. His wrestling, underrated, not that bad. A lot of it comes from the fact that he's 6 feet tall. He's got a lot of leverage. He's fairly big for the weight class. He walks around at 200 pounds. He's coming down. Now, he's only $8,000, so you can easily fit him on a cash game team. You're going to get something out of here. And the upside is him winning, which I do believe he'll win. He can either knock out Kevin Lee or submit him. It's just not likely to happen in the first or second round. It's likely that he's going to have to just drag him out to deeper waters. And Kevin Lee's a guy that, as explosive as he is, he does tend to fade the harder that the going gets. And he'll present opportunities to tag him. He'll present opportunities to get the fight to the ground. And, of course, if the fight gets on the ground, then Chiesa should have an astronomical advantage in that area. So this is a fun fight. It's a good fight. I like it. I'm going to have to go with Chiesa. But I am worried about the fact that he's coming off a long layoff, over a year, hasn't fought because of a back injury. But only 29 years old. He says that time off has worked wonders for him in just healing his body all around. So I'm going to have to side with Maverick, Michael Chiesa.
All right, so who are we going with the top of the cash game team?
Yeah, so there's a couple decent top plays, but we're going to go with Daryl Horcher, $9,200. Daryl Horcher, once again, I mean, every fighter coming into a fight, there's always going to be questions that surround these guys. And in Daryl Horcher's case, he took a short notice debut against Khabib Nurmagomedov, who's one of the greatest.
So he lost.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no one's ever beaten Khabib. So he loses, but he took the fight on relative short notice. He's stepping up to the plate against a top contender. He lasted 2 rounds, not quite 2 rounds. He lasted some 7 minutes, right? Got out of the first at least, and then he gets smashed away. It's not a bad performance for him. He deserved to be in the UFC. He's a guy that I've been watching for a long time. Good career wins over guys, 2 friends of mine, and Alex Ricci and EJ Brooks. But Daryl Horcher is a tough, good, scrappy little blue-collar vet coming through his way up, earns his way to the UFC.
Where was he before this? Just regional scene?
Just regional scene, and a good regional scene fighter, but nothing phenomenal, nothing breathtaking. The one real step up in competition he had prior to signing with the UFC was against Felipe Nover, I believe Who's Your Fight series, Who's Your Fight Club, And by the way, first rule of Hoosier Fight Clubs, you don't talk about it. So I've already probably said too much here. But he lost the decision to Felipe Nover, the superior grappler. Since then, he's just tried to build on that. And I do believe that he's just like, he's kind of good everywhere. He's got good punching power in that he knocked out EJ Brooks in like 20 seconds. He can go the distance. We've seen him go the distance multiple times against good fighters. But also his last 2 wins prior to signing with the UFC, he finished both opponents by KO in the 3rd round. So he can take you into some deeper waters and he can make you pay. He does have good grappling, good striking. Like I said, he's the total package. He's just not really great in one area. So coming into the fight with Khabib, I mean, it's a foregone conclusion he's going to get smashed, and he does get smashed. But it's what happens after that. He gets into like a devastating car crash, and well, they wondered if he'd even fight again, but he makes a good recovery. He says he's back healthy. He's hungry. He just flew out to Oklahoma City last night. He's geared up, he's amped up, he's ready to go. Now he's taking on Devin Powell. Devin Powell has no merit for being in the UFC, should not be in the UFC. However, he's from Maine. So he fights guys in Maine who have very little clue what they're doing. And so he beats them, he does. And it turns out that property in Maine, not that expensive.
Shocker.
And actually, really nice. So Dana White, who's from Massachusetts, has got ties to the Maine area. Apparently owns like a Wonderland in Maine. It's basically like a farmhouse with a go-kart track and all these toys, and he just goes there and does whatever he wants on his giant property in Maine. Nobody disturbs him. So as part of his show, Dana White looking for a fight, he takes them to this mega compound that he owns. All him and his buddies are having fun. Oh, hey, there's a local card on tonight. Let's go. They go out, they see Devin Powell. Devin Powell's getting thrashed. His nose is literally like 5 inches, half a foot almost over. He's getting beat up. He perseveres. He lands a shot on John Lemke, who was 5-5 at the time. He knocks Lemke out. Great. They go in the back and they're just like, "Hey, kid, fun fight. How would you like to sign with the UFC?" So he signs with the UFC. No merit to be there. Takes his UFC debut against Drakkar Klose. Smoked out by Drakkar Klose. Never won a single round in that fight. Loses all 3. Loses the decision. Now he's coming in against Daryl Horcher. Horcher's.
So is it more on paper, more of an even matchup for like where these people are at? Like the highest competition that Horcher's face is not UFC level, is it?
The highest level Horcher's face was Khabib, who's future UFC champion.
But that's not.
Prior to that,
that's not fair for him.
Prior to that, he fought tough alum Felipe Nover, who worked his way back to the UFC. He fought Alex Ricci, who fought in the UFC, and he fought EJ Brooks, who's a standout on the regional scene, but the high-end regional scene. So he's actually fought 4 or 5 notable guys in his career, whereas Devin Powell has fought nobody notable in his career outside of maybe Drakkar Klose, who was like 6-0. He was just like a up-and-coming a fighter out of the MMA lab. So Powell's not on this level here. Now, if you're a guy like Daryl Horcher, the UFC doesn't owe you anything, right? But they owe you kind of a favor. I mean, you just stepped up and you took this Khabib fight.
First, you got smoked.
We're going to give you another fight. But then you get into a tragic accident, and now there's some uncertainty. They're easing him back in, and they're basically being like, we're going to give you the best possible matchup for you. So can this kid go out there and survive? And if he survives, the $9,200 price tag is not great for me. But Horcher should be able to tag him standing, take him down at will, grind him on the ground, get transitional points, get submission attempts, and he could finish this guy, absolutely.
Okay, so I guess my question is, because we have $200 left over, we could afford Dominic Reyes if we wanted to. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't we?
Well, we decided to go with Dominic Reyes on the GPP.
We could play him on both. That's not illegal.
Okay, so the issue with Dominic Reyes is that he's 6-0, so officially we don't really know a whole lot about him. He's finished 5 of those 6 guys in the first round, so we don't know what his cardio is going to look like if he's going beyond. But basically, he's taking this fight on like 2 weeks' notice. So his opponent, Joachim Christensen, was coming in as cannon fodder for this undefeated Russian opponent. The Russian opponent pulled out. They needed someone short notice, so they gave this guy a ring short notice. He actually fought like 3 weeks ago or a month ago, but he won in a minute with a head kick, so it's like, oh. The best opponent he's ever fought in his career was 8-6. Is now 8-7 because he defeated him. So he hasn't fought anybody. And he moves around and camps a lot, you know? I mean, he started out, he was...
So is he not as big of a lock as it might seem based on the pricing?
Yeah.
Like, is this Christensen guy any good? Did you know?
No, I know everything about Christensen. He's 1-2 in the UFC. He's 38-year-old veteran out of Denmark. He's fought a lot of good guys. He beat Stefan Puetz, who was 9-0 at the time. He beat Max Nunez, who was a 13.
But he's 39?
He's 38, turning 39. He's 1-2 in the UFC, but he's got experience. He's also a BJJ black belt. And the thing is that he's fought later into fights. He's fought Jonas Billenstein. He has a win over Henrique De Silva in the UFC, which is a fight that he lost that fight, and he rebounded against Bojan Mihalovic. But he's at least fighting guys on that level. Christensen's been there. When you're looking at his opponent, Reyes has taken the fight on short notice, has never fought anybody of note, and I mean, he's gotten this big price tag. He was a D1 free safety out of New York for Stony Brook University, right? So he is a good athlete. But what have we noticed with a lot of these football players that convert is it takes time.
Who's
They're
the
great
LSU
athletes.
guy?
Sean Jordan. Sean Jordan's been around for a long time, though. But Alvin St. Preux, he was raw. He needed time to develop with him. We just seen a plethora of good athletes coming over, and it requires time to work with them. So this kid's still 6-0. He's trains under Joe Stevenson, the UFC veteran out of California, but he doesn't have any big-name training partners for the most part. He has bounced around a little bit in his career. He's only 26 years old, but there's so many question marks on him that I wouldn't play him on a cash game team. I mean, yeah, he's $100 more, and I can afford him, but he's more of a GPP play.
I guess the question is, because, I mean, the ultimate cash game team is still a GPP team at heart. You're still looking for quick finishes. You want 6 guys who win in the first round.
Of course.
If you can do that, it doesn't matter where you play, you're going to win. So I guess my question is, does Dominic Reyes have a better chance of finishing this Christensen guy in the first round than, let's say, scoring more points going the distance than Horcher would going the distance? Because it sounds like from what you're saying that Horcher is probably going to go the distance, right?
Well, I would say Horcher goes the distance only because Devin Powell went the distance with Dragger close, and that was a fight that he's going to get outclassed in, he's going to get outworked in, and will he be able to survive 15 minutes of that? But he did.
So if they both go the distance, who scores more points?
If they both go the distance, Daryl Horcher.
For sure?
Well, not for sure, but Daryl Horcher's going to be able to push the pace more because he's not a 205-pound male. And with Joaquin Christensen is that he's decent in the tie-up. He'll tie you up, he'll clinch you up, he'll try to take you down. His fights with guys like Anthony Ruiz, once he gets a body lock on you, he'll be able to trip you. And like I said, he's a black belt. Yeah, he's been submitted twice in his UFC career so far, but that doesn't take away from the fact that he knows what he's doing on the ground. So when you take 26-year-old former college ball athlete, well, he's obviously making the transition out of college sports into MMA. So he's learning things as he goes on. Let's say at best he's purple belt level, and that's at best. He's not black belt level. So is it crazy to think that this kid comes out? When things are going your way and you're knocking guys out in a minute, why change what you're doing? So he's not going to change what he's doing. He's going to go out there and he's going to knock out Christensen in the first round. That's why we're playing him on a GPP. But if he doesn't finish him in the first round, can he still finish him? Yeah, absolutely, he can still finish him. But it's also worth noting that the most experienced fighter he had ever fought was 4-3, and that was the fight he had to settle going for the distance. So can an old dog show this young rookie a couple things along the way? I do believe so, and that's why I just think that in a world where expect the unexpected, Daryl Horcher seems like the safer option, and so that's why I decided to keep him on the cash.
And then you could go down to Marvin Vittori if you wanted to as well.
Yeah, not sold on Vittori.
Not sold?
Well, I saw him live in Las Vegas at UFC 207, and just like when you're going into a third round and it's 1-1, that's the gut check time. It's like, okay, kid, show me what you got here, and then I get Antonio Carlos Jr. is a big guy and a good grappler, but he had him where he wanted him, and he wasn't able to pull the trigger on it. He wasn't able to, explore that second gear that young fighters often have. So he trains at Kings MMA. He's got one of the best coaches around him, one of the best coaching staffs around him. He's got all these great plays. He should be advancing astronomically. But there's a bit of a bump. I'm not sure if he's jumping over quite yet. And when you look at his opponent, Vitor Miranda, 39 years old, former K1 veteran out of Brazil, this guy's a banger. Thing is, he doesn't really have much of a ground game, but he's 2-2 in the UFC. Both times he's lost with decisions. Both times he's won, he's knocked the guy out. So you're playing with fire with this guy. If the young kid doesn't take him out, and by the way, it's hard to take him out, then he's going to have to strike with him at least at some points in the fight. And my last point on that is even though Antonio Carlos Jr. was the better grappler and he wasn't actively trying to take him down, he only really committed to one takedown in that entire fight. Got it, but only committed to the one takedown. He needs to probably take down Miranda because if he's just a young, brash kid who's thinking to himself, oh, I'd like to make a statement by knocking out a Brazilian striking legend like Vitor Miranda, shit, man, it could really go south for you. So he just doesn't have the finishing abilities right now to really get me behind him. He's still young. He's still green. And for the price tag he carried with him, just not the biggest fan.
All right, you're going Dennis Silver or Seaver?
Seaver.
That's not how you spell Seaver.
He's German.
Oh, that would make more sense. Over BJ Penn. Is this just a pick against BJ Penn?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm going to be honest with you. So I knew what I've been doing lately is that you're starting with your value picks at the bottom and then seeing what you can afford in the top end.
Is that how you do your lineups?
That's what I started to do. Because here's the thing. If you look at the top end and you're like, oh, I want this guy and this guy, then you're taking guys, you're like, oh, I don't like this guy, but I have no money. So if you start with the bottom end and you're like, you know what, I don't mind whoever it might be, a cheap value pick, then you know, okay, this is how much money I can afford. And on this particular cash lineup, I could afford quite a lot, but I'm thinking what's safe here. And the issue with BJ Penn is that
he's no good anymore?
Well, he hasn't won a fight in 7 years. So why would I have any reason to believe he's going to win now, right?
But I guess the one thing with BJ Penn, and I mean, you'll know this, but where he is a name, like he's a name that I recognize.
Yeah, huge name.
It feels like he would still be fighting either past their prime name guys who were once good, or just name guys in general, and probably just getting outclassed. Like, is this Dennis Seaver guy any good?
Yeah, well, he kind of falls in both categories.
Okay.
So Dennis Seaver's been around since, I believe, 2007. He's
Okay.
fought a lot of the top guys. He fought Conor McGregor, actually.
Did he win? Could he beat Floyd in a boxing match?
Clowned. He got. But although McGregor actually was in a little bit of trouble for calling Dennis Seaver a Nazi leading up to the fight. Had to retract the statement altogether. So that was pretty much the most trouble that Dennis Seaver was able to get him in. But all the same, German kickboxing champion. And in recent years, god damn, this guy's strong and has a big willingness to get to the grappling game. He's 5'7", and he essentially looks like Brock Lesnar at 5'7". Like, he's just a little compact, blonde-haired, mashed up face, and just ready to go out there. Now, he's been off for a little over a year, and this was a fight that was actually already scheduled, him and BJ Penn. What happened was Seaver pulled out, and then just like a plethora of other guys came in. They briefly talked about Cole Miller. They briefly talked about Ricardo Lamas, and then eventually settled on Yair Rodriguez, who absolutely cleaned his clock. But Seaver was still in those discussions. Now, I don't know the severity of the injury that sidelined him, but when you're looking at this fight for what it is, BJ Penn, if the fight hits the ground, everyone talks about how good BJ's ground game is, but like we don't really see him get the fights to the ground. And people might bring up the John Fitch fight, or people might bring up like, you know, times that he actually committed to it, but it was so long ago. You have to realize at some point that we can't judge a guy on stuff that happened in 2008 and 2009. We got to judge a guy by what's happened recently. And recently is Nick Diaz thrashing him, and then Rory McDonald thrashing him. But he survived those fights. Ooh, not against Frank Yeager the third time. The first time he really, really got beat up and owned and just taken out clean. And then Yair Rodriguez, Yair Rodriguez was able to do it even faster.
But like, how does
that's the trend,
But how
man.
does Seaver rank up against those guys?
He gets beat up all the same, but maybe, yeah, he gets beat up all the same. But the issue is here is that with BJ Penn, when we're thinking about what is he good at, well, we think about, his grappling. We just don't really see him go to it. His wrestling's not great, and it's going to be hard to take down Dennis Seaver. His reflexes seem shot. He's not all that strong. And by the way, talk about grappling. His only path to victory in his last fight against Yair Rodriguez was to try to get to the fight to the ground. He didn't even try, Pat. I was watching training footage on him. He's training with Diego Sanchez. He's training with Derek Brunson. The coaching staff, the whole game plan is how to set up off the punch, get to the clinch, get to the takedown. The fight starts, and he just zonked out and didn't even try anything. Now, maybe part of that's being bewildered by this young kid who's fast and dynamic and throws kicks from range. I'm sure that was a factor of it. But all the same, the BJ Penn that we remember ain't that guy anymore. He's not going to rush through the pocket dangerously anymore. The amount of damage he's taken in his last 4 fights is enough damage to retire most people. And finally, this is the legendary BJ Penn in what could be his last fight ever. He's curtain jerking on the main card of a free event on a Sunday. I mean, talk about falling
this is
from
on a
grace.
Sunday?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Bellator got the Saturday slot.
Ooh. All right, Eric, real coked. You got him?
Yeah, actually, you know what? The coke problem's really been giving him issues. Second fight in 3 years. So
Too much coke? Does he actually have a coke problem?
No. No, because he used to fight at 145. He's like, I can't do this anymore, man. My body's shut down.
If he was doing a bunch of coke, he'd fight at 135.
125.
He'd be real fired up.
He's a big dude, and so his body was just purely zonked. He was literally just shutting down.
So he was
fight
one of those
week.
guys that fighting at the higher weight class just makes more sense. Like, he's just able to perform better at a higher weight class.
He's just able to perform better, and so I think a lot of people, there's a misconception, like injuries in the gym. He's training too hard and he's sparring too hard. It's that, well, it's not even that you train too hard. It's that, imagine you're dehydrated, like to the point where you could probably go to the hospital and get treated.
Like, I would think that, like, if you do the weight cuts and it's too much weight and like you're in the sauna for like 18 hours or something crazy like that and like you're just whacked out of it, I would just think like your mental focus, like you would just be a half step slower even after you got everything back. Like, you
let me
wouldn't
ask
be
you this,
in the right state of mind.
And this is just practice. It's not game time. But even then, we'll talk about like it is game time or practice. It doesn't matter. Let's say it's practice, right? Let's say you're a football fan. You know football. Let's say you took a great running back, right? And you tell this guy, okay, you're playing on Sunday. It seems like all these great athletes, when they're talking about Sunday, it's like, oh, got to get my carb meal, got to get my chicken and my pasta.
They're prepared.
This is all. They're prepared.
They have sleeping regimens. They take naps during the day to get themselves ready.
You fuel your body so that it
peaks at the right moment.
Yeah, it's peak physical performance time. Okay, I'm ready to go. Now, in the case of these MMA fighters,
It's the opposite?
Well, the guys that that aren't fighting in their proper weight class, it's like, oh, I got to go to the gym tonight for a hard 2-hour session. I'm just going to have a little bit of walnuts and a little bit of broccoli and a little bit of lean chicken. It's like, oh my God, dude, you're missing so much that you need. And now you're going to go in there and you're going to get beat up. We'll talk about this later with the Kevin Lee situation. Kevin Lee might very well get knocked out here. And it's not because he doesn't have a great chin. And people are saying he's a tad bit chinny, but he walks around at 200 pounds and he's 5'9". So when he cuts down to 155, his brain's lacking so much fluid that he's getting wobbled by punches he would otherwise walk through. Now, to take that back to this fight, Eric Koch, he's going to the gym and he's trying to grind. He's trying to put in a full camp, but his body is just breaking down. His joints, his ligaments, all this stuff is missing fluids. So it dries out and it just leads to injuries. He's had a terrible injury-plagued, really career, but at his highest point, he had 2 fights with Jose Aldo for the title pull through, where the first time Aldo got hurt, they pushed it back, then he got hurt, and then they tried to push it back, but they ended up giving Frankie Edgar the fight the first time. Koch was at the highest level. He was there. It was within reach, but injuries and inconsistencies have just largely held him out of the spotlight. Clay Guida, meanwhile, this is his 24th UFC fight. This is his 50th career MMA fight.
That's not bad. Good longevity.
He's been around for so long, so long.
How old is this guy?
I think only 35.
Was he fighting every 3 weeks?
Well, back in the day he was. I mean, certainly now he's slowing down ever so slightly, but even then he's still going to fit in his two or three fights a year. His last time out against Brian Ortega, I mean, he's a heavy underdog, and I'm telling people, listen, Clay Guida is one of those guys that given the right stylistical matchup, he can still pull one out. And I think against Brian Ortega, I think this is a great stylistical matchup for him. He goes out there, wins the first 2 rounds, gets knocked down in the third. Son of a bitch. That was the chance to hop over the hump. What was more concerning about that is Clay Guida, and I've been watching this guy since 2006. Holy shit, is he durable, and is his chin on a next level? You cannot knock this guy out. But then Chad Mendez knocks him out. It was like, well, Chad Mendez is Chad Mendez. But then Brian Ortega knocks him out. And now the question starts to revolve around, is his chin gone? Quite possibly. His older brother was also a pro fighter. I believe his record's 18-26. So Clay was really, overcompensating for a long time. He's got wins over UFC champions, former champions, Anthony Pettis and Rafael dos Anjos. He's also beaten former Japanese standouts and, champions over there in Tatsuya Kawajiri and Takanori Gomi. He's also beaten Nate Diaz. He's also beaten, you know what I mean? Like, the list for this guy, Josh Thompson, former Strikeforce champ. The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. The issue is he never beat, except for Thompson, which is 2006. He doesn't beat those guys when they're at the top. He beats those guys on the way up. He beats those guys when that old dog can still take advantage. And I thought he'd do that with Ortega. But now he's at the end. That journeyman status is still there, but that's very much what he is. He's a journeyman gatekeeper. And Eric Koch, he's been off for a long time, but what we've seen is that his ability is higher than gatekeeper journeyman level. And his base is pretty solid. His kickboxing is good. Clay will struggle to take him down, and when the fight is standing, he is a lot bigger than Clay Guida, and he will be able to pick him apart at range. And final point on that is, it's not like Clay has a lot of size because Koch's going up to 55. Clay also fought at 45 as well. So they're both 45ers that are up at 55, and then so the size is definitely on Koch's side.
All right, the 2 sub $8,000 players, quickly,
okay.
They're on both teams.
Yeah, they're on both teams, so I could take a little bit of time.
Okay, so why? Why are they on both teams?
I'm going to tell you a story, Pat. This story might not make any sense, and it certainly might lead people to believe I am not betting Justine Kish. But I'm going to tell you a story about Justine Kish. I'm going to tie it in to Justine Kish. I went to an all-French elementary school, right, in Georgetown, Ontario. When I was in grade 6, they brought in this Russian kid who had lived in an orphanage in Russia, and tough times in the Soviet Union collapsing. This Canadian family had gone over there. They saw the impoverished conditions. They adopted young Sergei. He ended up taking their surname, House. He came over here. This kid arrived here, Pat, and he was just unattainable. Like, he was so fast. He was so big. He was so strong. They didn't know what to do with him. So they merged him into our class, and, well, it pretty much just beat everybody up. He wasn't a bully, but there was obviously a language barrier, and then it turns out that he had big time ADHD and ADD, so he couldn't stop. And if you tried to get in an argument with him, so they tried to put him on the track team. Okay, I went to school with he beat our buddy Jordan for top star spot on the track team. Jordan only African-American kid in Georgetown at the time. And Sergey goes out there and he beats him. He was on another level. And I'm just a little kid. I don't understand. But I always wonder what happened to that kid. That kid could have been a great fighter. So much energy, so much explosiveness. So we can look at Justine Kish. Justine Kish was adopted by an American family out of an orphanage in Russia. When she got here, it turns out she had ADHD. She was too wound up, so they stuck her in martial arts. She ends up getting like a 3rd-degree black belt in Kempo Karate, wins a World Muay Thai Championship, 40 pro Muay Thai fights, 6-0 undefeated record in MMA, and she's so strong. She is my Sergey House. I always wonder what happened to this kid, and they're not the same person. But this is what channeling that energy and aggression could do. Now, as a result, she's got way too much aggression when she fights. She's steamrolling forward at all times, but she's so strong. She will break people down. I know Felice Herrig's on a good little roll here. Felice Herrig does she poses problems in that she's got a great ability to take the back. And with Kish has got she'll bail out on a head and arm throw, and that's always dangerous for people who are good at taking the back. But also the way she fights creates a lot of opportunities to take advantage, and maybe Herrig could take advantage in those spots. But it's important to note that Kish is actually a higher level BJJ practitioner than Felice Herrig. Final point on Herrig is that people like Herrig because she cashed as like a 4-1 dog her last fight against Alexa Grasso. But the first 2 rounds of that fight, Grasso's not throwing any strikes. Grasso's moving back, maybe thinking about counterpunching. She allows Herrig to dictate the action for the first 2 rounds. The 3rd round, she realizes, I'm down. She just moves forward simply, and she chops up Herrig. She hurts her, she stings her. She ends up losing a close 29-28, but all the same, she lost. Don't allow Felice Herrig to set up shop and get her little kickboxing game going. You have to pressure her. And nobody pressures better than Justine Kish. $7,900, I think this is a whitewashed 3-round beating with the possibility of a finish. Because we saw Alexa Grasso rock Felice Herrig late, and Felice Herrig's a very, very much a confidence-based fighter. When she believes in herself, she really believes in herself. I could fight anybody. When she doesn't believe in herself, she falls apart. And just look at that fight with Paige Van Zandt. Paige Van Zandt's a 20-year-old kid who's not... I wouldn't even say she's not even half as strong as Justine Kish. She's 25% as strong as Justine Kish. Great cardio, but so does Kish. Felice Herrig quit in that fight. After the first round, which was a tough first round, the second and the third round, she has a couple moments, but she just bails on it. Her ground game starts to fall out. Her striking game's non-existent. And for a girl that's known for her cardio, she doesn't really seem like she's got anything left in the tank. So there's definite... This is a 50-50 fight according to the odds makers, but I definitely got Kish. And when I'm looking at the price tag on $7,900, I like it on cash game because I think it's safe. I like it on GPP because I think she's got high upside. And I haven't provided a bonus team. Actually, I did, and it's a cash game bonus team. And I like her there too. So maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Maybe I'm thinking too much about it. Maybe I'm too confident in what is essentially a 50-50 fight with the girl who arguably robbed her last 2 opponents. But styles make fights, and this is the fight for me personally.
All right, next one. $7,300.
Yeah, to be honest, and we'll talk about this when we get to that little bonus team I referenced. Marina Moroz could either be in for a good, solid night or just one of those rough experiences where she's just lying on her back the whole time. Because she's going to have this, not a significant, necessarily super significant, but she's going to have the striking advantage. She comes from a Ukrainian boxing background and just known for some decent hands. The issue is that a lot of the time she allows her opponent to dictate the pace. Her grappling is just okay. She has been taken down in her last 3 fights at least one time. And with Carla Esparza, this girl, back's not necessarily up against the wall, but she's the first ever UFC strawweight champ. She lost the title to Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Now you look 2 years later. Joanna Jędrzejczyk is one of the biggest stars in mixed martial arts, is the champion, has all these wonderful things going for her. Carla Esparza is on the free portion prelims of a free card. To that point, Felice Herrig was on that season and did not do very good. She's on the main card, but Carla Esparza is on the prelims. This is a girl that fights with a chip on her shoulder. If that chip is in place, she should be able to go out there and she should be able to largely get takedowns. But even what we've seen with Ronda Marcos, you can take her down. She's not going to pound you out. She's not super likely to choke you out. I mean, I know she got Rose Namajunas, but that was just a moment of the pressure getting to Rose. All the same, I see this one going the 3. But Moroz is going to have to keep the fight standing. She's going to have to punch from the outside. I like her on cash game team because I do not see her getting finished. But also, she's got a very underrated grappling game. She can throw up submissions from her back. And beyond all that, just scramble and get back up. Once Esparza gets desperate and she gets hit in the head a couple times, that's when you really start to see her flaws as a fighter. I need those to be exposed here, but it's going to be a close fight, and I acknowledge that.
Is there anyone else down there? Because we would have $200 to play with. So you're not looking at like Jeremy Kimball?
Oh, I'm looking at Jerry Kimball, all right, but definitely not on a cash game.
Not on a cash game?
No
Okay.
way.
All right, let's move to the GPP team. We have 4 of the same fighters as the cash team. So Tim Means makes the GPP team because he loves knocking people out.
So starting out, we actually got Dominic Reyes.
Yeah, but we already talked about Dominic
Okay,
Reyes.
perfect. So we're going to start out with Dominic Reyes. We're going to go to Tim Means, $9,000. Yeah, Tim Means. I mean, you're talking about a GPP team. You want Tim Means.
Do you want to take, if you were playing multiple lineups, would you take the other side of it?
Okay, yes, only because as much as I do love Tim Means, he's either going to pour it on you
Or get poured?
or you're going to pour it on him. And the thing with Alex Garcia is that when the going's not going for him, he's also one of these guys that tends to just mentally break. He looked great against Mike Pyle, which was December of the year. But to now sit on the sidelines for 6 months after such a dominating performance, maybe there has been some injuries. Maybe he's had some stuff in his personal life outside of the cage we don't know about. But he's just really strong, but he's a one-punch guy. He's got the big right hand. He'll close that distance. He'll get a hold of you. He'll throw you to the ground. The thing is that he uses a lot of muscle. He's built like a running back. He's got a lot of fast twitch muscle. So in pushing the pace on guys, if he knocks you out fast, great. If he doesn't knock you out fast,
He's gassed?
yeah, he'll gas out, and he starts to just hold on for dear life. And we've seen bad performances. I mean, namely like the Sean Spencer fight, just not good fights out of him. And even the last time we seen him getting cleanly outbeaten, it was just like a pillar to post the entire time. He's getting slapped around against Sean Strickland. He was just, it didn't appear that he was ever really in the fight. He's just getting smacked around. So he takes some time off. He comes back against Pyle. Pyle is a 50-plus veteran who was in his 40s. So, yeah, you can beat this guy. I get it. But Tim Means is coming off a loss as well. So I know that he'll be obviously motivated for this fight. But I really see it that Alex Garcia is able to manage the distance a little bit better in the first round, hold him up against the cage, use some of that muscle. But the thing is, Tim Means is not going to get tired unless you're completing takedowns and just pounding him out. And so he's going to get this elbow game going in that short distance in the pocket area. If it's at distance, he's got a better reach advantage. He's got a great push kick. He's got just a tenacity and a killer instinct. And do I trust him on a cash game? He could lose this fight. Would I put him on all my betting parlays? No. Would I put him on a GPP team? Yes. But to answer your initial question, would you take a play on Alex Garcia? Yeah. You definitely could.
So let's say we reconstruct this GPP team here.
Yep.
For example, so we take Tim Means and we take him off and we put on Garcia. That means we can get rid of one of the two at the bottom. Let's say we get rid of Morose.
For sure.
Just cross her off the list. That means we now have $8,800 left up at the top if we wanted to. Who would you put?
Well, this one's actually
Coke?
very,
Coke
this.
back on it?
Yeah, I'd probably put Coke. The reason I say that is because if you look at Carlos Esparza, who's 89. Oh wait, I can't afford her. She's $100 too much. Dennis Seaver, it's still going to be hard to finish.
Talked about Seaver.
It'd be hard
and
to
we're
finish.
already going against
Stansbury. I would not trust Stansbury as far as I could throw him, and he's a very large man. I could not throw him at all. And then, yeah, Eric Koch, $8,600. He's got high upside, and, yeah, I would take a play on him for sure on a GPP.
All right, you're also taking a play on Jared Gordon at $8,100.
Yeah, this is actually known to blow up in my face from time to time, whereas I actually switch a pick out. So this fight got made like 3 weeks ago, a month ago. And what happened is that we talked about it, and we had that Jared Gordon, the former junkie, who had died on like Christmas Day 2015, had spent the first part of 2016 in a rehab center, and then started to get his life back together. And then, big opportunity presents itself. He gets a little showcase fight. The UFC signs him. Oh, I'm so happy. And he's getting Michel Quinones. I liked Quinones. Quinones is not.
Oh yeah, I remember when we were talking about this guy. I kept calling him quinoas.
Yeah, and so what happened was Jared Gordon actually got sick the day of the fight, pulled out, and we had to make a replacement. We saw him medically unfit beforehand. Now a lot of people were saying it was like nerves, and a lot of people were saying he's back on the smack, which is a lie. He was not back on the smack. I think he was saying it was food poisoning, something like he had eaten and it just hadn't really sat with him. I think this is a blessing in disguise. I really do. I think he was jumping into this fight maybe just a little too soon. And I know a month is not the end of the world. It's not great, but he still got to go to weigh-ins. He still got to go to fight week. He still got to put the camp in. He still got to experience the environment of a UFC event.
All the crap without actually doing the fight?
Without ever actually compete. So now when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, this guy's actually still pretty young. He's not all that old. I mean, when we talk about, oh, geez, he wasn't in a training camp like this other guy. He was doing junk. Yeah, but we talk about guys like Ian McCall. We talk about guys like Matt Brown. We talk about guys that have actually died of drug overdoses, which this guy has also died of a drug overdose. The body is resilient.
Do you think
if you're not 50
that
years
this fight
old,
gets
junk
canceled?
addict? No, I don't think this fight gets canceled.
Is there any fight on this card that you think does get canceled?
There's always a fight that's going to get canceled. If there was a fight that was going to get canceled.
When are weigh-ins? Is it Saturday?
It's going to be Saturday because the card's on
Okay,
Sunday.
so you got to keep up to date on the weekend just in case. Because it happened to us, was it last week or 2 weeks ago with Cody?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
But I mean, it could happen at any time.
Yeah.
Last week we were worried because of the weird start time on the event.
3 o'clock in the morning.
If your opponent pulled out at 2:30 in the morning, you were going to be in a lot of trouble.
All right, let's get to this bonus lineup.
But anyways, yeah, just to finish on Jared Gordon, he's
Okay.
actually a brown belt under John Danaher. I think he's a little more physical, a little stronger. And if you look at Quinones, I mean, this guy's only lost to Brandon Gertz. Brandon Gertz is a former NCAA D1 wrestling standout, but a guy that also fancies himself on getting the takedown, working the ground game. When I look at Quinones is a traditional martial artist, so he throws out a lot of, as Robin Black would call it, flim-flam. It's just bullshit. It's water gun striking. It's just keep the guy at range as long as possible. But Gordon at some point is going to bite on the mouthpiece. He's actually got good hands, and if he gets this fight to the ground the way I expect him to get to the ground, he should dominate. So we're going to take the play on Gordon. As we mentioned, we like Chiesa, we like Justine Quiche. Marina Moroz, I'm not super high on her just because this is a bad stylistical matchup. But she's the better option from the other people who are in that range. Although you make a decent point. You could take a play out and
take Means out, put in Garcia, and then put Coke into Means' place.
But
and take out Moroz.
But now you really need Alex Garcia to perform.
Sure, but I mean,
but it's possible. You're gonna play multiple lineups. It's possible.
Yeah, this is why you play multiple lineups. You have to kind of hedge against yourself in some spots, just to because I mean, realistically, do you think Tim Means is going to be a popular play? I would assume he is.
I would think so. Yeah.
And do you think that Garcia is going to be a popular play?
No, but it's possible because people are going to look for the cheap options with that have a shot, and this guy's a cheap option.
Who do you think are going to
shot.
be the popular picks from down? Because I mean, everyone's going to have 2 sub 8,000 people basically.
Yeah, Vitor Miranda, if you're playing on a GPP, because of his striking pedigree and his ability to finish guys, I see him being a play. Alex Garcia, because of the price tag on him, and can Tim Means essentially just beat himself and allow Alex Garcia to get the victory? Undoubtedly. BJ Penn, people will play him because of the name. They know that he's super cheap. They think this is a winnable fight for him. They think that, hey, if he can even just...
Do you think because he's a name, he gets ownership?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Clay Guida, I mean, I guess I could see it. Tim Boetsch, I know a lot of people are making the case for him. The thing is, Tim Boetsch's got to fight a perfect fight almost to get a decision.
Now, you don't
Johnny Case is going to have to fight a near-perfect fight to get a decision. And those are all decision fights.
You don't have Boetsch or Hendricks on any team. Do you just have a bad feel for the fight?
Yeah, hell yeah, I got a bad feel for the fight. I actually like Tim Boetsch, but he's a 2.5 to 1 underdog. So I mean, it's hard to rally behind him. When I play him on a GPP team, here's the issue with that: if you play him on a cash game team, you're playing a guy that's really risky on a cash game team. If you play him on a GPP team,
even if he wins, he's not going to score.
His best case scenario is to grind out a close decision, right? So I just don't see him as being a big scorer. Johnny Hendricks, meanwhile. Johnny Hendricks, oh man, he could go out there and he could knock Tim Boetsch out. Okay, so we always talk about Johnny Hendricks and how good his punching power is. Hasn't knocked anybody out in 5 years. The second thing is that Johnny Hendricks is 5'9", a welterweight. He's moving up to 185 pounds. Tim Boetsch is...
That's 5'9", 185 pounds?
Tim Boetsch is...
That's big.
Tim Boetsch used to fight at 205 pounds and now competes at 185 pounds where he stands in at 6 foot. Tim Boetsch has fought something 15 times in the UFC. He's never fought anybody that was 5'9". That is by far the shortest guy he's ever fought. Now, Dan Henderson was 5'11". Dan Henderson beat him, but the punching power between Johnny Hendricks, which was suspect punching power because where did it come from and where did it go, versus Dan Henderson, the guy's been doing it his entire freaking life, it's different punching power altogether. So I'm going to give Tim Boetsch a pass on that. The thing with Johnny is that if he's not relying on this magical punching power to get him through the day, he's not knocking these guys out. Now, unquestionably, he's fighting the best guys in the world, and it's hard to knock those guys out. But he's fighting the best guys in the world at 170 pounds. So he decides, finally, my body's shutting down. I'm turning 34 this year.
Don't want to cut the weight.
Can't cut the weight. He missed weight twice in a row.
But how big is he, though? Like, you're 5'9". Like, you need to be jacked.
He's not jacked. He's pudgy. He's never had abs.
So he's fat now.
Yeah, but he's always maintained that. He's always had love handles on him, but he's at Oklahoma City, which is a home game for him because he wrestled at Oklahoma City.
But generally speaking, this is a stay-away fight for all of our teams. Just a bad feel for it.
Yeah, because I like Boetsch, but he's a big dog, and rightfully so. If you like Hendricks, you're relying on this punching power, which, like I said, I mean, how can you just assume he's going to knock out a guy? But the final point on that is that its size makes a big difference. Johnny Hendricks won his last fight at 185 pounds. His first fight at 185 pounds. The guy he was fighting was 5'9", former welterweight. Now he's fighting a guy that used to fight at 205 pounds, who's a massive individual, who will probably be 20 pounds bigger than him. So if the wrestling doesn't materialize, then he's got to stand. And the only issue with standing is that he's giving up a 5-inch reach. So I see it being trouble for Johnny Hendricks. But yeah, DK purposes, I mean, if you were going to play so many teams that you were looking for a punt, then Johnny could knock him out. I just don't really see it happening, so I'm staying away.
All right, bonus lineup is not a GPP lineup this week. It is a cash game lineup.
Yeah, it is actually a cash game lineup this week. I know normally I give those bonus GPPs, but literally the GPP I'm fielding out was the GPP I thought was
okay, so I kind of want to explain how this works. Now, usually what a lot of people do, and this is sort of when people first started getting into DraftKings, this is what they do. They make their one cash lineup. They play a whole bunch of GPP lineups. But the better way to go about it is, I mean, like, if you're going to play a bunch of cash games, which I always recommend that people do, 80% of your money should be on cash games, the other 20% in GPPs.
Yeah.
You want to strike big in a GPP. You should never rely on any sort of GPP lineup in order to, win you big money, because it doesn't happen all that often.
Plus the cash game money is funding the GPP
Yes.
money, right? You can take these wild risks and these
Sure.
big punt plays because you're winning on the cash end aside.
So if you feel good about your cash acumen when it comes to building lineups, I mean, you've been really good over the past 2 years. I've won a bunch of money playing your cash lineups.
It has been good so far, knock on wood.
Didn't work last week, but most weeks the cash game usually comes through. But if you start playing 2 or even 3 cash game lineups and playing more, it's better for bulk players. But if you start playing, let's say, you put out 50 head-to-heads, instead of putting all your eggs in one basket with one lineup, it could go tits up.
No, exactly.
That could very much happen. So now you have a different one. I would never play the same guy on all 3. Let's say if you played 3 of them. The max exposure you would have is 66%. But I do like the idea of playing 2 just in case you fall into that landmine. Everyone falls into the landmine.
Yep, I agree. And you know what? On prior editions where we feature someone who's on 2 lineups, on the bonus edition, I take him off, right? And in this case, I mean, I did keep Justine Quiche. I mean, just the value on her is
if
there.
you're going to play 2, there's only so many options.
Yeah, fair enough. But anyways, looking at this bonus team, okay, we're going to start out with Daryl Horcher at $9,200.
We've already been over all of these people, so just give me the quick roundabout version of this.
Okay, this is the Coles No version.
Yeah.
Horcher, sizable favorite.
Should win by decision, safe.
Get the takedowns, grind him out, get the decision. Carlos Esparza, $8,900. I actually need Marina Moroz, unless you're playing my cash game team. But for this team, you need Marina Moroz to get up so that Esparza can take her back down. That's what the points of it. If she just takes her down 3 times, does you no good. If she takes her down 5 or 6 times, which is a possibility, you're going to score well. Kevin Lee and Michael Chiesa. That's the exact reason this is a cash game. You can't win a GPP stack in the main event. You really can't. Unless you had some miraculous Joanna Jacek fight where it's just crazy the whole time. So we're stacking it here because I truthfully believe that Kevin Lee's going to come out. He's going to win the first couple rounds. He will get takedowns. This is a guy that got 9 takedowns against Magomed Mustafayev.
So
he's a great wrestler.
You think that he could score like 80-something points in a 5-round loss?
Yeah, but to be perfectly honest with you, he's not going 5. He's getting finished in the 3rd or 4th. But he'll probably score enough points to justify that I'm going to hold him. And if it is able to go 5, that's going to be fine too. He'll be able to come out the early couple rounds, get some takedowns, get some significant strikes.
I don't like doing the same fight stack for a middle tier price. I would prefer
cheap.
I would prefer to go Reyes and Christensen. Because then I'm guaranteeing myself a win.
Well, it's a cash game team, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to win some GPP. The way I see it is that...
But I understand that, but the reason to take the 2 people in the same fight is to free up salary cap so you can take more favorites.
Yeah.
And here we're taking 2 toss-ups. That it's tough.
Yeah, fair enough. We have 4 toss-ups.
But when you're doing Reyes and Christensen, theoretically you're conceding the $6,900 with Christensen. But you're guaranteeing yourself a win either way. But you can get yourself up a little bit. You know what I mean? Fair
enough. The thing is, if you got Reyes and he scores 100 points and Christensen scores 10, it's like, oh, great, I got 110 points. If these guys can both go out there and score 60, 70 points each, then I'm going to get 130, 140 points.
Yes, but you're then trading off, you have $8,200 and $8,000. I know it equals up to be about the same amount of money if you did the other stack, but then you can have other guys. You can take one of Kevin Lee, and then you can take Coke as well, and then your team just is better at this. As a whole. In my mind, that's how it would work.
You know what? And that's why I got to play different rosters for sure. When I look at this team, I don't have some grand endure that it's going to go and score 600 points. What I realize
Could it score 400?
Undoubtedly. Daryl Horcher is going to go out and he's going to score me at least 80 points. Esparza should be able to go and do the exact same thing. Kevin Lee and Michael Chiesa, like I said, if they can combine for 130, 140 points between the 2 of them, I'm okay with that. Justine Quiche, I like this girl. I think she's going to score at least 70 points. And finally, you're rounding out with Johnny Case, $7,800. This is an extremely winnable fight for Johnny Case. Johnny Case is a young guy who does struggle in the wrestling department, but is always getting better every day. And so he goes out to San Diego. He's making great improvements at the MMA Alliance, and he realizes, I'm a young kid. I'm not making a rambunctious amount of money. I can't live in San Diego. What was I thinking? I'm going to go out to the cheapest state in the U.S. Well, it's like, you're going to go to Florida or Las Vegas? No, I'm going to Arizona. He goes to Arizona at the MMA lab, the place to be. And that's just a great training environment, a great training facility. But also the game plan there would very much be Tony Martin might win this first round. But those guys always lose the first round. They come hard in the second and the third. Johnny Case fits that mold. I think that he'll benefit greatly from being full-time at the MMA lab. And with Tony Martin, here's my issue with Tony Martin. Tony Martin starts out and he decides, oh, you know what, I'm going to go to Lloyd Irvin's gym in Maryland, one of the greatest BJJ gyms. So he's training there and he's getting some good looks and he's improving by all stretch of the imagination. Then he decides, you know what, I'm going to go to Florida. Yeah, I'm going to go to Florida American Top Team. He goes to Florida American Top Team, a little bit. Then he decides, no, I'm going to go to Minnesota, Minnesota Top Team. So he ends up in Minnesota. Then so now he's effectively gone to 3 different gyms. Then he leaves Minnesota. Now he's back in Massachusetts working at a boxing gym. And he just got back from Europe where he was helping out Nikki Holtzkin, the former Glory kickboxing champion, get ready for a kickboxing match. His head's all over the place. He was forced to take over a year off from the sport with bad back issues. And he's so cocky. He talks so much shit that the line's obviously in his favor because people are getting behind him. But
because he's recognizable?
This is a close fight. Case is not likely to get finished, although it is possible. Sure, anything's possible. Case is not likely to get finished, so $7,800, I feel safe with him. But just look at the fact that he himself averages 81.5 points. This guy's a point getter. He'll go out there, he'll put some hands on Tony Martin, he'll stop some of those takedowns. He can make this a greasy fight, which is what I need him to make it. And at that point, price point, $7,800, sign me in for Hollywood Johnny Case.
All right, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Hour. So Sunday, you say? What time does it start? Like 6? Like normal? Or is it like an afternoon card?
Yeah, no, it's not an afternoon card, but it does start, I think, a little earlier than
5?
normal. Something like that, 5:30.
Well, it's Central Time in Oklahoma City.
Is that what they're on?
Yeah.
Mm.
So they're an hour behind us here in the Eastern time zone. So it might be like normal time Eastern, but like the card itself starts at like a wonky time in Oklahoma City. I don't know. Anyway.
Could be weird. Who knows? Should be a good night of action. We'll see what happens.
Cody Saftic, hit him up with your questions on Twitter. You always enjoy that. When people tell you things about MMA, but how people like to talk and like...
I never blocked anybody except for that one guy, and I don't know his name, but fuck, man, every week, you hand out a winning team, and I don't know why, but he just comments on everything. I sure like losing money. Then the next week it's like, I sure like losing money. I want to tell him, dude, I'm going to send you a team. I'm going to DM you a team just so I can lose you money. I fucking hate your guts. Please stop messaging me. But then I thought... No, that's what they want. I just blocked the guy. But yeah, all jokes aside, I mean, there's some really cool guys on Twitter. There's some really good people to follow and knowledgeable people. And just a lot of the people that follow the show, if they're still listening to it at this point, they're generally good people. They reach out to us. They're personable. And no, I really appreciate all the support from everybody.
Yeah, so check out Cody on Twitter, at CJ Saftic. You can follow me or not follow me. I don't really care. At the PME on Twitter. But here's what I do care about. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Hour anywhere where podcasts are. That's Audio Boom, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever it is. Or check out the video versions up on FNTSY Sports Network or the Fight Network. Or just watch Fantasy Sports Network TV channel. It's up there too. Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. Good luck this week. I'll see you next time.